Absolutely. Let's go, line by line, word by word, and I'll explain this in the simplest, clearest way possible, just like teaching a beginner or a child, with examples and extra details to make everything super easy to understand. Have line 1. Among all the committees of the Constituent Assembly, the most important committee was the Drafting Committee set up on August 29, 1947. Explanation. Among all the committees, out of all the small groups, teams, made by the Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly. The big group of Indian leaders that was making the Constitution, India's rule book. The most important committee, the Drafting Committee, was the most special and powerful one. Was set up on August 29, 1947. It was started on this date, about 2 weeks after India became independent. Simple meaning. Out of all the teams that were helping write the Constitution, the most important one was the Drafting Committee, started on the 29th of August 1947. Line 2. It was this committee that was entrusted with the task of preparing a draft of the new Constitution. Explanation. Entrusted with the task, given the important responsibility. Preparing a draft. Writing the first full version, not final, just the first try. New Constitution, the new set of rules that would guide India after independence. Simple meaning, this committee was given the big job of writing the first full version of India's Constitution. Example. Imagine you're building a house. This committee made the first blueprint for that house. Line 3. It consisted of 7 members. Explanation. Consisted of means it was made up of. There were 7 people in this team. Simple meaning, the Drafting Committee had 7 members in total. Now let's meet the 7 members, like a team of writers. 1. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He was the leader of the team, a brilliant lawyer, thinker, and social reformer. He is called the father of the Indian Constitution, like the captain of a ship guiding everyone. 2. N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar, a senior government leader and expert in administration, helped in shaping the structure of government in the Constitution. Have 3. Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, a famous lawyer from South India, helped write legal parts of the Constitution clearly. 4. Dr. K.M. Munshi, a freedom fighter, writer, and legal expert, very active in cultural and national matters. Think of him as someone who made sure Indian culture and values were protected in the Constitution. 5. Syed Muhammad Sadullah, a leader from Assam and representative of Muslims, helped ensure minorities were protected. 6. N. Madhava Rao. He joined after B.L. Mitter resigned due to poor health. A top-level civil servant, bureaucrat, helped with technical parts of the Constitution. 7. Krishnamachari, he joined after D.P. Khaitan died in 1948. A strong speaker and economist, helped explain the Constitution during debates. Note, the last 2, N. Madhava Rao and T.T. Krishnamachari, were not original members. They replaced others due to illness or death. Line 4. The Drafting Committee, after taking into consideration the proposals of the various committees, prepared the first draft of the Constitution of India, which was published in February 1948. Explanation. After taking into consideration, after reading and thinking about the ideas from other teams, proposals of various committees, the suggestions from all other small groups in the Assembly, prepared the first draft, wrote the first full version of the Constitution. Published in February 1948, it was shared with the public in this month and year. Simple meaning, after studying ideas from other groups, the Drafting Committee wrote the first full version of the Constitution and showed it to the people in Feb 1948. Line 5. The people of India were given 8 months to discuss the draft and propose amendments. Explanation. People of India, common citizens, leaders, lawyers, teachers, students, everyone. Given 8 months, they got 8 months of time to read and react. To discuss the draft, to read, talk about, and understand it. Propose amendments, suggest changes or improvements. Simple meaning, people were given 8 months to study the draft Constitution and suggest any corrections or changes. Example, like when your teacher gives you a rough copy of a project and asks, "Tell me if anything should be changed." Line 6. In the light of the public comments, criticisms, and suggestions, the drafting committee prepared a second draft, which was published in October 1948. Explanation. In the light of means based on. Public comments, what the general people said. Criticisms, things people did not like or thought should be improved. Suggestions, new ideas people gave. Prepared a second draft, wrote a revised version, updated version. October 1948. This new version was made public in this month and year. Simple meaning. After listening to people's feedback, the committee made changes and released a new improved version in October 1948. Line 7. The drafting committee took less than 6 months to prepare its draft. Explanation. Took less than 6 months. Finished the work in under 6 months. To prepare its draft, to write the full version of the Constitution. Simple meaning, the drafting committee finished its writing job very quickly, in under 6 months. This is very fast, considering it was one of the biggest documents in world history. Line 8. In all, it sat only for 141 days. Explanation. In all, in total. It sat only for 141 days. The committee held meetings for 141 days to complete its work. Simple meaning, the drafting committee worked on the Constitution for only 141 meeting days in total. Still, they created one of the longest and most detailed constitutions in the world. Final super simple summary. Key point. Simple meaning. August 29, 1947, date when the drafting committee was formed. Task, write the first full version draft of India's Constitution. Members, 7 people, led by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. First draft, published in February 1948. Time for public. People had 8 months to read and give suggestions. Second draft, published in October 1948, after changes. Work time. Committee worked for less than 6 months and met for 141 days. Bonus memory trick. Easy rhyme to remember. 7 wise men, led by Ambedkar's hand, wrote India's rules to guide the land. In 6 quick months, they shaped the law, a draft so grand it filled with awe. From Feb to Oct, 2 drafts they made, and for 141 days, they laid the blade. Would you like flashcards of this? A mind map? A visual comic of the drafting committee? Let me know. I can make learning this even easier and more fun. Sure. Here's a great, deep, and detailed summary of the enactment of the Constitution in the simplest possible language, as if I'm explaining to a total beginner. Deep and simple summary of the enactment of the Indian Constitution. What does enactment of the Constitution mean? It means how India made its Constitution final, official, and legal. It tells us the steps taken to prepare the Constitution, discuss and change it, approve it, sign it, and finally, adopt it as the law of the land. Step-by-step journey of enacting the Constitution. 1. Final draft presented. Date, November 4th, 1948, by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, chairman of the drafting committee. What? He presented the final version, called a draft of the Constitution in the Constituent Assembly. This was the first reading, which means members looked at the overall document. They didn't go into deep details yet. 2. General discussion. From November 4th to November 9th, 1948, 5 days. What? The Assembly had a general talk on the draft. They discussed big issues like democracy, rights, structure of government, etc. 3. Second reading. Detailed discussion. November 15th, 1948 to October 17th, 1949. Duration almost 11 months. What happened? They started checking the Constitution line by line, clause by clause. It was the most detailed and long part of the process. Amendments proposed. Total 7,653 suggestions, called amendments, were made to improve or change the draft. Out of these, 2,473 were discussed in detail. This shows how seriously and carefully they went through every line. 4. Third reading, final approval. Started November 14th, 1949. What? They read the final version after all the edits and discussions. Dr. Ambedkar moved a motion, formal suggestion. He asked the Assembly to accept and pass the Constitution. 5. Constitution passed. Date: November 26, 1949. What happened? The Assembly voted in favor of the final Constitution. It was officially passed. The document was signed by all the members who were present, the President of the Assembly. Out of 299 total members, 284 were present and signed it. 6. Preamble mentions this date. The preamble, the opening part of the Constitution, clearly mentions this important date, November 26, 1949. It says that on this day, the people of India, through the Constituent Assembly, accepted, enacted, made it law, and gave to themselves this Constitution. Why is this important? It shows that India's Constitution wasn't forced by outsiders. It was written by Indians, for India by Indians. It involved deep thinking, careful changes, months of work, and the approval of representatives from all over India. Important dates to remember. Event date: final draft, final presented, first reading, November 4th, 1948. General discussion ends, November 9th, 1948. Clause-by-clause discussion begins, November 15th, 1948. Clause-by-clause discussion ends, October 17th, 1949. Final reading starts, November 14th, 1949. Constitution passed and signed, November 26th, 1949. Final summary in one simple paragraph. The enactment of the Indian Constitution was a long, careful process where Dr. Ambedkar presented the final draft in 1948. The Assembly first discussed the general ideas, then went through the Constitution clause by clause, making thousands of suggestions. After 11 months of detailed discussion, they finally approved and passed the Constitution on November 26, 1949. This day is now written in the preamble as the moment when the people of India gave themselves this law, making India a truly self-ruled democratic nation. Would you like a comic strip, timeline poster, mind map, storytelling version to help you remember this even better? Just say the word and I'll create it. Absolutely. Here's a great, deep, detailed, yet extremely simple summary of everything we just explained, like a story, as if I'm teaching a beginner with zero background. This will help you understand, remember, and explain it to others too. Deep and simple summary. How India's Constitution was made, and Dr. Ambedkar's role in it. What is the Constitution? The Constitution of India is the highest rule book of the country. It tells how the government should work, what powers the leaders have, what rights the people have, how laws should be made and followed. Just like a school has rules written in a diary, India has its rules written in the Constitution. When was the Constitution adopted? On November 26, 1949, the Constitution was officially accepted by the Constituent Assembly, the group of people who wrote it. This day is now celebrated as Constitution Day in India. At that time, the Constitution had a preamble, introduction, 395 articles, rules and laws, 8 schedules, extra lists with helpful information. What is the preamble? The preamble is like a short introduction at the start of the Constitution. It tells what kind of country India wants to be. It mentions important goals like justice, fair treatment, liberty, freedom, equality, everyone is equal, fraternity, brotherhood, unity. But interestingly, that's after the rest of the Constitution was completed, adding the title page after writing a book. Who was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar? Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was one of India's greatest thinkers and leaders. He was a brilliant lawyer and writer, an expert in making laws, a strong voice for the scheduled castes, people who were earlier treated unfairly, a champion of equality, the law minister of India at that time. He had studied in top universities like Columbia, USA, and London School of Economics, UK. He had faced discrimination himself, so he deeply understood the need for fair rules for everyone. What did Ambedkar do in the constitution making? Dr. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee. He brought the first draft of the Constitution, explained each part in the assembly, took part in serious debates, improved many rules by listening to all views, and helped create a constitution that protects everyone, rich or poor, man or woman, any caste or religion. People say he piloted the Constitution. Like a pilot flies the plane, Ambedkar guided the Constitution safely through all difficulties. How did he speak in the assembly? Dr. Ambedkar was known for his logical thinking, step-by-step and clear, his strong voice, he didn't hesitate to speak up, his persuasive words, he could make people agree with him. Whenever there was confusion or doubt, Ambedkar explained the rule in a way that made perfect sense. What is his legacy? Because of his massive role, Ambedkar is remembered as the father of the Indian Constitution, the chief architect of modern India's rulebook, a modern Manu, a new age lawgiver, unlike the ancient Manusmriti, which was unfair to many. He made sure the new constitution was modern, fair to all, and based on equal respect for every Indian. Final summary in one line. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar led the making of India's constitution. A powerful book of rules, passed on 26 November 1949, with a clear goal to build a free, fair, and equal India for everyone. Would you like me to now create a comic strip to visualize this? A memory trick to help you remember key points? A mind map? Just say the word.
Of course, here's a great, deep, detailed summary of everything above, but still in simple, easy-to-understand words so you get the full picture without confusion. The Constitution of India, how it started. 1. The Constitution's adoption and first steps. On November 26, 1949, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution. This means the people's representatives finished writing the Constitution and agreed. This is how we want our country to run. But only some important parts started working right away on November 26, 1949. These included rules about citizenship, deciding who is an Indian, since millions of people were moving across borders after partition, elections, setting up the election commission so India could hold fair elections, provisional parliament, a temporary parliament to run the country before general elections, temporary and transitions. Rules need to smoothly shift from British rule to self-rule. These rules are found in Articles 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Citizenship, and Articles 60, 324, 366, 367, 379, 380, 398, 391, 393, which helped get India ready for full independence. 2. The Constitution's full start. January 26, 1950, the major part, most of the Constitution, started working on January 26, 1950. This day is officially called the date of commencement in the Constitution. From this date, India started fully following its own Constitution. This is why we celebrate January 26 every year as Republic Day, the day India became a complete republic, not just independent. 3. Why January 26 was chosen. Its historical importance. Back in December 1929, at the Lahore session of the Indian National Congress, leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru decided India must fight for Purna Swaraj, complete independence, not just dominion status under the British. On January 26, 1930, Indians all over the country celebrated Purna Swaraj Day, hoisted the tricolour, and took an oath to fight for total freedom. This day became a symbol of India's determination for full independence. So when the Constitution was ready, our leaders chose January 26th as the date to give it full effect, honouring that historic pledge. 4. Ending old British laws. Before the Constitution, India was ruled under British-made laws. The Government of India Act 1935, the main law for governing India under the British. The Indian Independence Act 1947, the British law that gave independence to India and Pakistan. On January 26, 1950, with the Constitution fully in force, these old laws stopped applying in India. They were repealed. This meant India was no longer governed by foreign-made laws, but entirely by its own constitution. 5. What happened to the Privy Council? The Privy Council in London was the highest court of appeal for India during British rule. If someone lost in Indian courts, they could take the case to London. In 1949, India passed the Abolition of Privy Council Jurisdiction Act, ending appeals to this British court. This law continued even after January 26, 1950, ensuring that the highest court for Indians became India's own Supreme Court, not a court in another country. Ash 6. What this all means. The big picture. From November 26, 1949, India started preparing to become a republic by enforcing key rules. On January 26, 1950, India fully adopted its constitution, becoming a sovereign republic. The choice of January 26 honoured India's historic first call for complete independence, Purna Swaraj, in 1930. With the constitution's full start, old British laws ended, and India became fully self-governed. The Supreme Court of India replaced the British Privy Council as the final court of appeal, showing India's complete legal independence. Analogy, in India was like a teenager living in someone else's house, the British. On November 26, 1949, the teenager says, "I've finished writing my own house rules." Basic things like getting electricity or a door key. On January 26, 1950, the teenager moves into their own house, fully living by their own rules and never needing permission from the old guardians again. That's why January 26 is so special. It's not just a holiday, it's the day India truly started living by its own rules and became the Republic of India. Would you like a timeline diagram, a comic strip, or a quiz to help you remember this better? Of course, here's a great, deep, detailed summary of the criticisms of the Constituent Assembly, but in simple, clear words so you can understand every detail without any confusion. What is this all about? The Constituent Assembly was the group of people who met between 1946 and 1949 to write the Constitution of India. While many admired their work, some people, called critics, pointed out what they saw as problems or weaknesses with the Assembly. Their criticisms focused on three main points. 1, it was not truly representative of all Indians. 2, it was sovereign or independent. 3, it took too long to finish the Constitution. And 1, not a representative body. Critics argued the Assembly was not representative because members were not directly elected by every adult in India. Instead, they were indirectly elected by members of the provincial legislatures, assemblies set up under British rule, where very few Indians could actually vote. At that time, India did not have universal adult franchise, meaning many people, especially women, the poor and marginalised communities, couldn't vote at all. Critics believed this meant the Assembly did not fully reflect the will of all Indians because a small, educated, urban elite chose the members. The vast majority of ordinary Indians had no direct say in who wrote the Constitution. Critics said a true representative body would have been directly elected by every adult, like what happens in India today. 2, not a sovereign body. Critics said the Assembly was not sovereign, meaning it was not fully independent, because it was created by the British Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946, not by Indians themselves deciding freely to make their own constitution. The Assembly operated before India became independent on August 15, 1947, so it needed the permission of the British government to meet and continue working. Some critics felt that since it worked under British laws and supervision, it couldn't truly make decisions entirely on its own. They argued that a sovereign assembly would have been created by Indians for Indians, without any foreign power deciding how or when it could meet, completely free to work without asking the British government's approval. 3, time-consuming. Critics said the Assembly took too long to finish the Constitution. The Assembly first met on December 9, 1946 and completed its work on November 26, 1949, taking 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. That's all to write the Constitution. Critics compared this to the American Constitutional Convention, where the US Constitution was drafted in about 4 months in 1787. They said if Americans could finish so quickly, why did India take so long? Some critics even mocked the Assembly's slow pace. Nazirun Ahmed, a member of the Assembly itself, jokingly called the drafting committee, the group responsible for writing the final text, the drifting committee, implying it was slow and directionless, like a boat drifting aimlessly. However, India's leaders argued the process took long because India was a huge, extremely diverse country with hundreds of languages, religions and castes. Leaders needed to carefully address issues like fundamental rights, minority protections, and the status of princely states, and many other complex matters. They wanted a constitution that would work for everyone and avoid future conflicts, so rushing it could have been dangerous. Why did these criticisms matter? These criticisms remind us the Constituent Assembly was not perfect. It shows that not everyone in India felt represented in the process. The Assembly's independence was limited at first because of the British context. Some felt the Assembly was slow and inefficient. But understanding these criticisms helps us appreciate the enormous challenges India faced after centuries of colonial rule. The Assembly's attempts to build a constitution that would hold together a country of incredible diversity. The care they took in ensuring that the constitution would be detailed, comprehensive and long-lasting, even if it took longer than in some other countries. Final deep summary in simplest words. Some people complained about the Constituent Assembly because, 1. It wasn't truly chosen by everyone. Ordinary Indians couldn't vote directly, so it didn't fully represent the people. 2. It wasn't completely independent. It was set up by the British and needed their permission to meet. 3. It took almost 3 years to write the Constitution, much longer than other countries, like the USA, which finished theirs in a few months. Despite these criticisms, the Constituent Assembly succeeded in writing a constitution admired worldwide for its detail and ability to keep India united. Would you like a comparison chart, a comic strip, or a timeline of the constitution-making process to help you remember this? Of course, here's a great, deep, detailed summary of these 3 criticisms, but explained in simple, clear words, so you understand every detail, even if you know nothing about the topic. 1. Dominated by Congress. What it means? The Constituent Assembly had a majority of its members from the Indian National Congress, INC, the biggest and most powerful political party during the freedom struggle. Why it happened? Congress was the only truly national party at the time. Most Indians who could vote supported Congress, so the party naturally won the most seats in provincial elections, which indirectly chose assembly members. What critics said? Because Congress leaders filled most seats, they could control debates, decisions and committees. Critics like Granville Austin said the Assembly was almost like a Congress club, because India's political scene outside Congress was weak or divided. Why it mattered? When one party dominates a decision-making body, it can lead to less discussion of alternative ideas. Minor parties and groups might feel ignored or powerless, which can reduce trust in the process. 2. Lawyer-politician domination. What it means, many assembly members were lawyers and career politicians, with fewer farmers, labourers, artisans, or people from other walks of life. Why it happened? The freedom movement had a strong legal and political leadership, so many key leaders were lawyers, e.g. Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Ambedkar. These leaders naturally became assembly members because they were already influential. What critics said? Since lawyers and politicians wrote the Constitution, they used complicated legal words and lengthy explanations instead of simpler, everyday language. The Constitution became bulky, long and deep, hard to read for common people because of the way lawyers write, precise but complex. Why it mattered? A constitution is meant for all citizens, not just experts. Complicated language can create confusion about rights and duties and makes it harder for ordinary people to understand their own constitution. 3. Dominated by Hindus. What it means? The assembly had a large number of Hindu members, with fewer members from other religious groups like Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Parsis, etc. Why it happened? Initially, the assembly included members of the Muslim League, the main party representing many Muslims. But after the demand for Pakistan became strong, the Muslim League boycotted the assembly and refused to participate. This meant the assembly had fewer Muslim members, and the overall representation shifted toward Hindus. What critics said: British leaders like Lord Viscount Simon and Winston Churchill said the assembly represented only one major community, Hindus. They feared the constitution wouldn't fully reflect the interests and concerns of religious minorities. Why it mattered? India is a multi-religious country, so having fair representation for every community was important to make sure everyone felt included. Lack of diversity in the assembly could make minorities feel excluded or mistrustful of the new system. Why these criticisms were important? These three criticisms highlight the weaknesses of the Constituent Assembly, despite its achievements. Political imbalance. One party dominating means fewer checks and balances on decisions. Social imbalance. Few members from non-legal, non-political backgrounds meant everyday people's voices were not heard directly. Religious imbalance? Lack of representation from minority communities could undermine unity and trust in the Constitution. But it's also important to remember, despite these criticisms, the Assembly produced a detailed, flexible constitution that has lasted decades. Many leaders, including those from different regions and communities, worked hard to protect rights for all Indians, even if representation wasn't perfect. Deepest simple summary. Critics said the Constituent Assembly had three big problems. 1. It was dominated by the Congress Party, which reduced political diversity. 2. It had too many lawyers and politicians, leading to a constitution that was long and hard for ordinary people to understand. 3. It was mostly made up of Hindus, because Muslims and other minorities were underrepresented after the Muslim League boycotted the Assembly. These issues showed the Assembly didn't fully reflect India's political, social or religious diversity, even though it eventually created a strong constitution. Would you like a comic strip, mind map, or timeline to remember these points easily? Of course, here's a great detailed summary of these important facts. Clear, complete, and easy to remember, so you get all the key points without missing anything. Important facts about the making of the Indian Constitution. 1. Elephant as the symbol seal. The Constituent Assembly adopted the elephant as its official seal. The elephant represents strength, wisdom, and patience, qualities the Assembly wanted for the Constitution of India. 2. Sir Ben Rao, Constitutional Advisor. Sir Benegal Narsingh Rao was appointed as the constitutional advisor to the Assembly. He studied other countries' constitutions and suggested which ideas could be adapted to India. His draft and advice were the foundation for the final constitution. 3. H.V.R. Iyengar, Secretary to the Assembly. H.V.R. Iyengar served as the Secretary of the Constituent Assembly. He handled administration, organised meetings, maintained records, and helped the Assembly work smoothly over 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. 4. S.N. Mukherjee, Chief Draftsman. S.N. Mukherjee was the chief draftsman who took decisions made during Assembly debates and carefully wrote them into proper legal language. He ensured the Constitution's text was accurate, consistent, and precise. 5. Handwrote the entire original English version of the Constitution. He used beautiful italic calligraphy, making the Constitution look elegant and timeless. He did this work with great dedication and did not charge any fee, considering it a service to the nation. Artists from Shantiniketan. The original Constitution was decorated by artists from Shantiniketan, an art and education centre founded by Rabindranath Tagore. The lead artists included Nandlal Bose and Beohar Ramanohar Sinha. They added artistic illustrations, motifs and borders inspired by India's cultural heritage, making each page a piece of art. 7. Beohar Ramanohar Sinha's special role. Beohar Ramanohar Sinha especially illuminated, decorated and beautified the original preamble, the Constitution's opening statement. He added rich colours and ornaments to highlight the importance of the preamble, which declares India's core values like justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. 8. Hindi version, calligraphy and decoration. The constitution was also handwritten in Hindi, so it would be accessible to Hindi-speaking people. The Hindi calligraphy was done by Vasant Krishan Vaidya. The Hindi version was decorated by Nandlal Bose, ensuring both versions, English and Hindi, were equally elegant and culturally rich. Why are these facts important? They show the Constitution was not just a legal document, but a masterpiece of art and dedication. Many talented people, legal experts, calligraphers and artists, worked together to make the Constitution accurate, beautiful and meaningful. The care taken in writing and decorating it reflects the respect and seriousness with which India's founding leaders approached the task of building a democratic nation. Super simple. Elephant equals Assembly's symbol. B.N. Rao, legal advisor. A.R. Iyengar equals secretary of everything. S.N. Mukherjee wrote the drafts properly. Prem Raizad equals handwrote the English constitution beautifully. Shantiniketan artists equals decorated pages with Indian art. Beohar Sinha decorated the preamble specially. Vasant Vaidya plus Nandlal Bose equals handwrote and decorated the Hindi version. Would you like a mind map, comic strip or a quiz to help you remember these facts? Absolutely. Here's a great, deep, detailed summary designed to leave no gaps in your understanding, but still in simple, clear language so anyone can follow it. What was the problem? When India's constitution was first adopted in 1950, it was written only. There was no official Hindi version. India has two main official languages, Hindi and English, but the highest law of the land was available only in English. This made it hard for millions of Hindi speakers to read and fully understand their own constitution. Why is an official Hindi version important? 1. India is a country where many people do not know English well, especially in rural areas. 2. The Constitution tells citizens their fundamental rights, duties, and how the government works. Everyone should be able to read it. 3. Having a single, official Hindi version avoids confusion, because if different people or states made their own translations, there could be differences in words or meaning leading to misunderstandings or legal problems. How did the government fix it? In 1997, India made the 58th constitutional amendment, the 58th official change to the constitution since it came into force. This amendment added a new article called Article 394A to the end of the constitution, Part-2. What does Article 394A say? Article 394A has two key rules. First rule, the President of India must publish an official Hindi translation of the entire constitution. This Hindi version must use the same words, style and technical legal terms that are used in other official Hindi laws of India. The Hindi text must include all the amendments, changes made to the constitution before the Hindi version is published, so it is fully up to date on the day it's printed. Second rule, whenever the constitution is amended in the future, new changes made after the Hindi version is published, those amendments must also be translated into Hindi and published as part of the official Hindi constitution.
Why language, style and terminology
matter? Legal language has to be precise so everyone, courts, lawyers, citizens, understands laws in the same way. The Hindi constitution must use consistent words used in other Hindi laws. Example, if official Hindi laws use Rashtrapati for president, the Hindi constitution must also use Rashtrapati. This prevents mistakes or differences in meaning which could cause legal disputes.
What does under his authority mean?
The president must use his official power to make sure the Hindi constitution is published. It's not a suggestion or option. It's a legal duty placed on the president by the constitution itself. Why was this amendment added to the last part of the constitution, Part-2? Part-2 of the constitution deals with short titles, dates of commencement, and transitional provision, basically the final and administrative details of the constitution. Since adding an official Hindi version is about publishing and administration, it was logical to place it at the end. What changes because of this amendment? After the 58th Amendment in 1987, there is now a single authoritative Hindi constitution recognized by the government. Every new amendment to the constitution must be immediately translated into Hindi, so the Hindi version is always current and matches the English version. Hindi speakers have the same access to their rights and duties as English speakers. Why is this important for democracy? For a democracy to work well, people must know their rights and understand the rules. A constitution in a language people understand empowers them to hold the government accountable. It also helps the government, lawyers and judges to apply the law correctly without confusion. Before 1987, no official Hindi constitution. 1987, 58th Amendment created Article 394A. Article 394A requires publishing an official Hindi constitution with all past amendments, translating every new amendment into Hindi going forward. The Hindi constitution must use standard official legal Hindi words. This ensures equal access to the constitution for all Indians, no matter what language they speak. Extra clarity with a simple example. Imagine there's a law in English. All citizens have the right to privacy. Before 1987, there was no official Hindi version of this law in the Constitution. People had to rely on unofficial translations. After the 58th Amendment and Article 394A, an official Hindi version says, Sabhi nagriko ko gopniyata ka adhikar hai. And if Parliament changes the Constitution tomorrow to add, say, a right to digital privacy, change must also be translated officially into Hindi immediately.
In short,
the 58th Amendment and Article 394A guaranteed that the Constitution would exist in official Hindi. All Indians, whether they read Hindi or English, can know their rights, duties, and how India is governed. Democracy becomes fairer and stronger because language won't stop anyone from understanding the supreme law of the land. Would you like a timeline, flowchart, or quick quiz to check your understanding?